Condemnation cannot penetrate the breastplate of God's approval. Fear and inferiority cannot penetrate the breastplate of God's approval. What somebody said about you, what mistakes you've made, what failures you've had, what things you've done, what things others have done to you, none of those things can penetrate the breastplate of God's approval. The breastplate of righteousness, we hear about in Ephesians chapter 6:14, the thing that is to protect our vital organs, the thing that is to protect our heart, the thing that is to protect what goes in and what comes out of our heart is the breastplate of righteousness, but it's actually translated as the breastplate of God's approval. Put the Living Bible up there if you guys have that, if you find that translation. The breastplate of God's approval. The breastplate of what? What protects your heart? What is the thing that should be on your heart? God's Word translation, or George Washington's. I don't know what GW is. One of them says it this way: put on God's approval as your breastplate. We are living in a world that is nursing from the milk of this world's approval. We must wean ourselves off of it today. We must live our lives free from people and from their approval and put ourselves completely and utterly in the hands of God's approval. Keep that verse up. Putting on the breastplate, the thing that protects the heart, the thing that protects the vital organs, the thing that protects everything that matters to the sustainability of your life is protected by God's approval. Condemnation cannot penetrate the breastplate of God's approval. Fear and inferiority cannot penetrate the breastplate of God's approval. What somebody said about you, what mistakes you've made, what failures you've had, what things you've done, what things others have done to you, none of those things can penetrate the breastplate of God's approval. We do not need the influencers of social media's approval. Whoa, I just got followed by an influencer. Really? That guy should be lucky that you are anywhere in proximity to that person, because you are God's favorite child. You have God's approval, and those people are benefiting simply from the temporary drug of man's approval that will never, ever be satisfied. We should know by now the proof of something that is not God's way is it never satisfies you. It's never enough. You see, if God supplies all our needs according to his riches and glory, money is not how I measure my needs being met. Because God doesn't need money to meet my needs. He can use it as one of the ways, but it's not the only way. It's not the only way. He can bring water from a rock. He can bring birds from the air. They can drop off bread. They can drop off. Listen, some of you had a little, when we were kids, there was a little like a little bird thing out on one of the trees in the front yard. And I don't know, my mother or somebody would put some bread in there, and sure enough, those birds would come and eat that, and God was meeting their needs. You think they were saying, there better be a worm in this ground somewhere. God, if you're truly meeting my needs, there better be a worm. I better find a worm. I better find a caterpillar. I better find something to eat in the ground. Little did they know that God was providing something for them that wasn't in the ground, but a human being put it in a tree. Those same birds that you fed when you were a kid, or those same birds that you fed or that you see, those same birds could feed you. The chicken was delicious. Think about that. We do not need this world's approval. We need to put on the breastplate of God's approval. That's all we need. That's all we need.